So I'm currently sitting in the Casa Hotel in Manchester with James, aka Lawrence Arabia, and two people from the opposite sides of the world. You're hours and hours and hours away from here. I'm from LA, and somehow we ended up here in Manchester together. You're at your last leg of this like Euro UK tour, promoting your latest album, the Singles Club. Would you say Lawrence Arabia Singles Club?
Yeah, it's like I always refer to it as Lawrence Arabia's Singles Club.
Okay. And how's it going? How are you feeling? And considering that you've played to like a different audience every single night.
We're pretty tired, I think, would be a pretty simple description of how I feel at the moment. But I'm really enjoying the tour. Like it's been a real struggle booking it, and I've had to rebuild a lot of things as my career in the last few years, and I've had to send a lot of emails to get this happening. And so I've got two young kids, and for me this tour has just been like every night, even if it's, there was one not so great show but in Liège because there weren't many people there, but even that night I was telling myself this is a really good experience. Yeah. And so I've been really forcing myself, even in situations where normally I might be a little bit negative. Yeah. I've been really forcing myself to just embrace the moment.
I think you need that positivity to kind of like expand your energy, considering that you are jet lagged. You are working every day and working a stage every day. So telling yourself it's going to be okay. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I mean, there's a lot of I'm doing a lot of sort of self-actualization, internal mantra stuff, mindfulness exercises. But yeah, I mean, I'm just aware of being fortunate. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm checking my privilege. Even when there's only 8 people in the crowd in Liège, yeah. I'm still like, this is good. I'm in Europe. I'm traveling with my friends. I'm getting a little bit drunk every night. Yeah.
The ultimate dad dream, I think, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I almost think that Europe is like the perfect demographic for your music. I just think your music's kind of classical and timeless, and it also has like this really sharp and witty lyrics to it. And it also appeals to like the indie alt crowd. How do you think the crowd in Europe and the UK respond to your music?
I think that, I noticed a real jump in a different kind of reception in the UK, just in terms of the amount of comprehension of the lyrics, because a big part of what I do is lyrics. The whole thing is it's I think it's got every element, important elements that make good songs, but it's a extra level of excitement when I can say a joke and it gets a laugh in the middle of a song. I think people have enjoyed it, and I don't know. I'm not like evaluating the audiences on there. Yeah. I'm just trying to have a really good time. Yeah.
I feel like there's so much instrumentation in the recording process of a lot of your albums, and Singles Club just like blew it out of the water. I think you just hearing it, there's so many details, and it's really fascinating to hear every song because it is completely different from one another. Do you have any former experience with like classical music or orchestra?
Not really. I just sort of muddled my way through learning things, but I think the closest I got to that was being in choirs at school, and I studied piano for a few years but never really got anywhere, so I learned to read music a little bit, but I never had any application, and I think in general my approach as a child or as a teenager was just do the minimum work possible. The biggest influence in a lot of ways was singing in a choir and learning how to harmonize and learning the way that arrangements worked, vocal arrangements, and I do identify that as a big part of what I do now.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that's where your whole music path started, was in choir. Did your parents kind of force you, like, you have to join choir? Were you very interested from the beginning?
It wasn't very it was old-fashioned, and so I mean I really liked music, and my parents weren't religious or sort of pious or uptight. They they just listened to like Dire Straits and the Beatles and stuff at home. So I just like pop music, but really, and I just like singing, I think. And then and basically being in the chapel choir singing Anglican anthems was the only way to. There was the only outlet really. So yeah. I mean, I think if there'd been a rock band at my primary school, I would have gone into that. But the choir was the way to make music. Yeah. So I started playing piano when I was about 10, and then I think when I was about 13, I picked up my dad's guitar. He had always had a guitar around the house, and just started trying to learn some chords, and just taught myself some chords. And
nice.
yeah, and then I think when I was about 16 or something, I started writing songs, quite bad ones.
I'd love to hear one if one comes to mind.
No.
I heard that you actually got to work with someone big on this past album, Dyke Parks. How was it working with him? And you were emailing back and forth, and then...
Oh, it was really exciting. Yeah, I mean, it was just we haven't met yet. I'd like to hopefully meet him one day, but we just we're exchanging emails, and you know he's like a genius person, and he writes the most sort of crazy emails with the very full of wordplay and really I'm so inarticulate at the moment to describe how articulate he is in the way he writes. Yeah, and but he was very matter of fact about wanting to, you know, he's just very upfront about, I'll send me a song, I'll tell you how much it will cost if I want to do it, and then he did want to do it, and he told me how much it cost, and then I had to do a Kickstarter. Yeah. But yeah, it was just one of those things. As soon as I'd sent that first email, the whole process found its way into. It was not going to stop from that point, because I couldn't not do it at that point. As soon as he said yes, I was, well, I'm not going to, 'cause he's a hero of mine. He's obviously worked with a lot of people who I really love, and I love his work too, and yeah.
And you've also had a lot of your talented friends join in on some of the songs on Singles Club. Who were these lovely friends of yours, and what tracks did you guys get to work on together?
The first person I invited in was Holly Fulbrook from Tiny Ruins, and she sang on the song Everything's Minimal. I'm just trying to think through the songs. I had some, I've got some friends who've played with me on various live things as string players that there's probably slightly too many to mention, but and there was Liam Finn played drums on A Little Hate, and my friend Heather Mansfield, who she used to sing in the Brunettes, which was the band that I was touring with in the early 2000s. Yeah, and who else? Ryan McFun, who's in the Ruby Sons, and he's here playing drums for me tonight. He played drums on Everybody Wants Something while he was back. Who else is there?
A lot of friends.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the thing is, it was a very solitary process, most of it. It was quite a bedroom type. I mean, I've got a little studio in Auckland, but it's basically it's an office, but it's sort of like a bedroom style recording, really. Yeah. So occasionally I just need to either just to make myself feel sane, and I'd get friends in to come and do things. Yeah, but there's other people.
I do love the kind of dynamic with that. I feel like New Zealand has that and Australia has that. Just like come over, let's just play some music, and then it ends up being something incredible like your albums.
Yeah, I mean it is a collaborative place. I definitely, I used to live here, and well, not in Manchester, but in London, and I just that extra kind of cutthroat careerist element I found a little uninspiring. I mean, I love the place and I love living there, but I found it stifling, just the I guess just the level of ambition and the way it affects people's creativity. And I think people in New Zealand are a little less concerned about career over just the actual the element of just having fun and making music with your friends and trying to make something cool. That's the thing that comes first for a lot of people, and
Yeah, I could kind of relate to that too. Coming from a massive city like Los Angeles, I feel like even just getting together with someone, it's like you have to call them 2 weeks beforehand, and even in their windows, like from like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. because they have to get to their other job, and it is a bit soul sucking for the creative part of you, you know, just because there's only an ambition for a career, and that's why maybe Auckland is great for that, and I think that's why. I don't know, maybe like Northern England would be nice for that too. And Australia and Melbourne, it was the same kind of deal. It was just creative over and personal life over career.
Yeah, I don't think you have that sense that you maybe sometimes do in LA, that this conversation is no use because you're of no use to me, because you have nothing to offer my career, which sometimes maybe in a paranoid moment I feel. But yeah, it's less likely to feel that in Auckland, I think.
Yeah. And I've always been curious whether or not it's hard to work with other musicians that have really strong opinions about music, like collaborating on something. Has that ever been like a problem for you, or are you that friend that has a really strong opinion?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm quite easy to work with. I mean, it's just, I think everyone just respects that, you know, the if it's your project, you'll have the veto on the decision-making process. But you know, every time you engage with someone like that, you've kind of got to negotiate the rules of engagement, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the reason why I don't collaborate with people as much as I should, and because it's, you know, it's less tense.
Yeah, I know the music industry in New Zealand is very like close knit. You actually just released a music video that I just saw today, and it's for Everybody Wants Something, and it was Jemaine Clement, and he starred in Flight of the Conchords and is now like a massive movie star. How was it to have him on your video, and are you guys like buds, or how did that relationship get formed?
I mean, he's a big music fan. Like he really likes music. And when we were touring in 2010, they asked us to play with them at Wembley Arena. So we did 2 shows with Flight of the Conchords at Wembley Arena, and that was the first time I met him. And then we ended up working together on a podcast called The Mysterious Secrets of Uncle.
Oh, I've heard about this podcast.
Yeah, and yeah, we became friends, and then I just asked him to be in this video, and obviously he was producing the What We Do in the Shadows TV series, and he's been doing another What We Do in the Shadows spin-off show in New Zealand.
Wow, busy guy.
And I think he was acting in Legion as well or something, but it took months and months for him to be, you know, I was like, well, maybe May would be all right, and so eventually we got to May, and we got to do it, and it was pretty fun. Yeah.
Any suggestions that you have with like Kiwi bands, like we should keep our ears open for, or that's kicking ass in New Zealand?
Oh, there's a band. I mean, I've got 2 young children, and I'm not very good at going out at the moment. But there was a band that played with us in Auckland called Hans Puckett, and there are 2 twin brothers and another guy, and they quite nerdy, but they're I think they wouldn't be offended that I said that. They've got maybe a shtick almost, but they're a very potent live act. So I think they'll go far. But I'm woefully out of touch, really. I mean, I see names around and think I should check them out. But
Kiwis are famous for your guys' sense of humor. I think it's such a dry but like really extremely charming, and it translates in like films, music, art. Do you think it forms in your music and music videos?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard for me to do anything that isn't funny, that doesn't contain a joke somehow. like I would feel very uncomfortable delivering a very sincere sentiment that wasn't somehow underpinned with a joke. And I don't know why that is, but it is something in the national character that you need to skewer. It's very suspicious of sincerity. And certainly among my friends, you know, any band that is trying too hard or delivering a really anthemic music that has no comic element it's an object of ridicule. And I think that's, you know, like it's totally normal for a band in LA, say, to just be like, we kind of like sound like the Killers or something, or whatever, you know, or Imagine Dragons, and we make emotional rock music, and it's all about you know, wanting to fall in love with someone. There's no jokes. It's full on. We want to sell out stadiums. Yeah. That kind of ambition and that is very suspect in New Zealand.
Sussy, huh?
Yeah. So I think maybe that kind of mindset's evaporating a little bit. You know, there's been some successful musicians from New Zealand that aren't particularly funny. But you know, like I don't know. It's just I think, you know, it comes from the Flying Nun generation of musicians. Was a really, you know, a very strong suspicion of careerism and a really strong sense of self-deprecation.
What was the journey with this album? I know it was a completely different journey to other albums.
It was really different. I mean, yeah, it was a totally unique experience, and in a lot of ways it was kind of stressful, but there was the thing that was taken out of it was the doubt. And you know, I remember when I made Chant Darling, that was a particularly fraught experience that took a long time to make that record. You know, I mean, it turned around, I think it got it out in about 3 years after the previous one, but for me at the time, in my mid-20s, that seemed like an absolute eternity. And I was used to being really quick and producing stuff really quickly, and then I found it incredibly difficult, and I was living in London and I don't know, going through all sorts of strange questions in my life. But yeah,
as you do at that age.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So, but this one was, you know, took a year to make. You know, it was a 12-month process. But you know, the doubt that I had about, you know, whether it was it any good. Because I had to release a song every month, I never got to the point where I was experiencing that kind of doubt. So in that sense, it was a lot more of a sane experience. It didn't necessitate the kind of major angst that some of my previous recording, especially Chant Darling, involved. Because it was just, you know, ultimately my moments of doubt, I just had to throw them aside and just go for it. Yeah. Because I would have been, you know, well, I just wouldn't have done what I had promised I was going to do to the people that paid the money. Yeah. So that's another thing that, I mean, how flattering was it to know that there's so many fans backing you behind this just because they wanted to see this album happen? It was really cool because it's in, you know, especially, you know, like, I guess in light of what we're talking about with the New Zealand psyche, I think, you know, putting yourself out in a situation where you're asking for money in advance of something you do made me feel very nervous. Yeah. But on the first, I can't remember, but I think it was about $8,000 or something on the first day, and it was very elating. And just because it was just like, oh, thank goodness, like this isn't, you know, I'm not being laughed out of town. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was really nice, and it's, you know, it's just, you know, established a lot more communications with people that I can now identify as being loyal supporters of my music, which is just really nice, because you don't get that much, you know, you get a lot of feedback or in general with social media, but it doesn't necessarily give you a sense of what it means to people, you know. Just because people comment on things, you don't necessarily get a sense of what it means to people in their lives, but you know, it's been nice to see people actually value it in that way, with cold hard cash.
That's what makes it cold hard cash. No, but I do like the way that you went about it by releasing every song as a single, because it's like looking forward to the next song and the next song and the next song. How did you come up with that, or how is it that idea came about?
I mean, I had that sort of I'd had a vague thought about that for quite some time, like needing to release something regularly, but yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like a manageable. At one point, a couple of years before, I thought, I'm going to release an EP every month. But it just, eventually a single seemed like a manageable amount, so just what I did. But and also just like, because people process music in singles these days a lot, and the way people seem to get success is basically just by having one successful song or a couple of successful songs on Spotify playlists. Yeah. It seemed to be at least give it 12 shots at that,
Give it 12 shots.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like maybe it's a little unromantic, but the album is the thing that delivers your message is kind of defunct. And I was just getting a bit sick of all that work, and you put so much effort in, and I mean, people like it, but it does, when you've worked so hard on something, for it to sort of feel like it disappears really quickly is a little deflating. So I just wanted to, it just felt sensible and more fun to do it that way.
Yeah, and considering, I was kind of intrigued with your artwork too. I'm not sure who does your art for the album. How did that come about as well? Who does your art, and who thought about the idea?
My girlfriend Anne's does the art, and she's done most of my art, or all of my art. Yeah, I came up with the concept together, and so each of the items on the single covers represents, I guess, the theme, a theme or an object that relates to the lyrics of each song. And then, compiled, I've worked with a photographer who I've worked with a lot called Amelia Hanscom, and we did the photo shoot, which incorporated, I went to a prop shop and hired a lot of the items, or found a lot of the items that were on those single covers, and then we put them in a photo. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Yeah. And
I do like also with the album that you kind of, it's not just like an album, and in my head, I thought singles, they were going to be completely different, but they somehow coincided with one another.
I mean, it wasn't important, and I kind of wanted it to be. I wasn't trying to care about that, but then gradually, as the year went on, I started to think about it as a journey, or something, and that, where I'd start at the beginning of each month, I'd often just find myself going, well, if I was listening to this album, and I just heard that last song, where would I want to go with the mood from here? And so I started kind of developing that flow of the record through the year. But yeah, I think it did end up flowing quite well, considering the way it was made.
I think the album is beautiful, and it flows so perfect together. But with that being said, I think it's really exciting to see an artist like you, because you just put so much work into every individual song, and it comes out to be this like magical album. Okay, so after the Europe tour is over, what do you think will come from Lawrence Arabia? Are you thinking of making a new album or touring again, or?
I'm not thinking about anything.
You just want to go?
No, I don't want. Well, I do want to go and see my children, but yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about touring again. It's quite fun.
The States?
I'd like to. It's a little complex. I don't have a booking agent at the moment there, and I need to get a visa, and so in order to get a visa, I need to get a booking agent.
Another Kickstarter. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Lawrence Arabia in the United States of America.
Yeah. It might happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like, as a personal fan, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and like talking to me, but also just like creating music that isn't like anything else out there. But yeah, I just want to thank you.